There is a strange, quiet moment that you might know far too well. It usually happens in public. You are standing in a crowded room, surrounded by the warmth of conversations, laughter, and busy people. Yet, despite being right in the middle of it all, you feel entirely and completely invisible. You feel like an alien observing a world you simply do not belong to, watching from behind glass. It is not that you lack basic social skills or that you do not know how to smile. If you have to, you can play the part. You can make the polite, expected small talk. But inside your mind, there is a profound sense of disconnection, a vast, quiet, hollow space. You look at the people laughing around you and silently wonder, why is everyone else finding this so easy? Why does their connection seem so effortless, while yours feels like a heavy, unnatural performance? Slowly, the vibrant noise of the crowd starts to blur into a dull, heavy, meaningless hum. The colorful faces around you begin to fade into plain gray shapes, leaving you completely alone. Society has a very quick and harsh diagnosis for this specific feeling of intense alienation. They tell you that you are just being antisocial, that you are isolating yourself on purpose. They make you feel like your social programming is somehow broken, like you are a defective machine. But what if there is nothing wrong with you? What if being an outsider is actually a gift? Think about the casual, everyday conversations you constantly hear going on all around you. People casually discussing the weather, the latest social trends, or the new things they just bought. For the vast majority of the world, this surface layer of interaction is entirely enough. But for you, participating in this shallow exchange feels exactly like reading from a forced script. It is a script written for a dull theatrical play that you never even auditioned for. You politely nod, you smile on cue, and you give all the socially correct responses. But beneath that polite performance, deep down in your core, a part of you is starving. You see, you are not simply looking for someone to casually pass the time with. You are desperately looking for someone who is willing to explore the depths with you. You crave pure authenticity. You want to know the heavy thoughts that keep them awake at 3 a.m. You want to understand their hidden fears, their unhealed wounds, and their truest, most secret dreams. When you cannot find this level of depth, your mind and body instinctively decide to withdraw. You quietly retreat into your own world, preferring the rich, complex universe inside your own mind. Because to a deeply processing mind like yours, sitting completely alone in the absolute silence is far less lonely than being surrounded by 1,000 empty, meaningless words. To understand this profound feeling of isolation, we must turn to the pioneer of depth psychology, Carl Jung. Jung believed that every single person in society wears what he called a persona. The persona is a social mask. It is the character we play to be accepted by the tribe. Look closely at the people around you. They are all wearing their own masks. Some wear masks of constant happiness. Others wear masks of relentless productivity or perfect confidence. For most people, the mask is fused directly to their skin. They do not even know they are wearing it. They accept the social script as their absolute reality, moving through life with comfortable ignorance. But your mind operates differently. You possess a hyper-awareness of the mask you are holding. You can literally feel its weight in your hands. You can feel the cold, unnatural texture of it. When you hold it up to your face, it does not fit right. It feels suffocating. This is exactly where your deep sense of alienation is born. It is a gap in consciousness. It is the painful, widening gap between who you truly are and who society demands you be. Every time you force a polite laugh, a tiny part of your authentic self feels betrayed. You are not broken for feeling exhausted by this. You are simply highly self-aware. The alienation you feel is actually your authentic soul rejecting a mask that is too small for it. Carl Jung warned us about a very specific danger regarding the social persona. The danger is not the mask itself. We all need a polite character to navigate the daily world. The true danger arises when you begin to identify completely with your social performance, when you spend so much time pretending to be normal that you forget the face underneath. When you stare into the mirror and you can no longer tell where the mask ends and you begin. For many people, this fusion happens unconsciously. They become their job, their status, their polite smile. But you are different. Your deep feeling of alienation is actually a powerful, protective warning system. Your intense discomfort in crowded rooms is your soul refusing to let you forget who you really are. It is a quiet, desperate rebellion from within, begging you not to lose your true self. But here is the difficult part. Taking the mask off is an incredibly terrifying thing to do. Society actively rewards the mask. It praises the easy conversations, the polite nods, and the agreeable smiles. If you dare to show them your true, complex, and unpolished self, will anyone actually stay? This intense fear of rejection often forces you to keep the mask firmly on your face. Even when you know it is slowly suffocating your spirit, you wear it to avoid total abandonment, leaving you trapped in a painful paradox. Too authentic to pretend, but too afraid to be real. To understand why it is so painfully difficult for you to just blend in, we must look beyond psychology and step into the actual wiring of your physical brain. Science suggests that some individuals are simply born with a profoundly unique neurological trait, a trait commonly referred to as sensory processing sensitivity or the highly sensitive person. Your brain simply does not filter out external information the way a normal brain does. Instead, imagine you have hundreds of invisible sensory cables plugged directly into your mind. Every time you walk into a room, these cables automatically connect to the people around you. You do not just hear their words, you absorb their micro-expressions, their hidden tensions, and the unspoken emotional baggage they are carrying, even when they are smiling politely. While others are casually sipping coffee, your brain is processing a massive tidal wave of data. This is exactly why everyday small talk feels so incredibly exhausting and empty to you. Small talk is designed to skim the absolute surface of human experience. It is a shallow puddle, but your deep processing brains was built to navigate the heavy currents of the deep ocean. Trying to force your vast, complex mind to splash around in a shallow puddle does not just bore you. It physically and mentally drains your vital energy completely. When you are constantly told that you are too sensitive or thinking too much, it is incredibly easy to start believing that your brain is fundamentally flawed. But let us look at the beautiful hidden advantage of having a deep processing mind. Your internal world is not empty. It is a massive, infinite library of connected thoughts. While others see a single, isolated event, your brain immediately sees the entire connected pattern. You naturally notice the tiny, intricate details that everyone else completely misses, like a very slight shift in a friend's tone of voice, or a hidden sadness in their eyes. This high-resolution processing also applies to the incredible beauty of the world around you. Because you feel the pain of the world deeply, your capacity for joy is equally profound. A beautifully composed piece of music or a quiet sunset can literally move you to tears. You are essentially walking through life with a highly tuned, deeply receptive emotional antenna. You are fully capable of picking up the most delicate, beautiful frequencies of human experience. The problem is not your antenna. The problem is that modern society operates on a loud, harsh, and chaotic frequency that simply overwhelms your delicate tuning. So you retreat, not because you hate people, but because you must protect your profound inner peace. But in this profound, absolute silence, far away from the loud and chaotic demands of the crowd, something else finally has the quiet space to surface, something Carl Jung called the shadow self. Look down at the moonlit path. Notice the dark, smoky shape trailing quietly right behind you. According to Jung, the shadow is the psychological container for everything society told you was unacceptable. It holds your raw anger, your unconventional desires, and all of your deeply unpopular, honest opinions. Every single time you forced a polite, empty smile to fit in with the gray crowd, you took a vital piece of your authentic self and locked it away in the dark. Therefore, the profound alienation you feel is not just a painful separation from other people. It is actually a painful, widening separation from your own repressed and hidden shadow self. You feel an unbearable emptiness inside because you have essentially exiled half of your own soul. But here in the absolute solitude of the night, the shadow begins to call out to you. It does not want to hurt or destroy you. It desperately wants to be seen and integrated. Carl Jung believed that a person who never confronts their shadow remains forever shallow and incomplete. They become perfectly adapted to the surface of society, but remain entirely lost to themselves. Society asks you to hide your darkness, but your shadow is where your true depth actually lives. When you finally embrace this hidden part of yourself, you stop fighting the alienation. Throughout human history, every society has consisted of a village, a safe, comfortable center. The village provides physical safety, warmth, and a predictable routine for the vast majority. But the village is also a place of strict conformity where the social script must be followed. In every generation, there are always a few individuals born with a restless deeply observing spirit. This is what Carl Jung would recognize as the archetype of the wanderer or the outsider. These are the people who simply cannot sit comfortably around the warm, predictable fire. They feel an irresistible, quiet pull to walk away from the noise and step into the unknown. The rest of society often views these wanderers with suspicion or even pities them for being alone. But the outsider serves an absolutely vital evolutionary purpose for the growth of humanity. They are the brave ones who venture into the deep, dark forest to discover new paths. If every single human being were perfectly adapted to the village, society would completely stagnate. It is exactly the people who do not fit in, the ones who feel profoundly alienated, who ultimately end up expanding the boundaries of what is known and what is possible. Your sense of alienation is not a modern psychological disease. It is an ancient, necessary calling. Carl Jung had a specific name for this courageous journey into the psychological wilderness. He called it individuation, the lifelong, challenging process of becoming the person you were truly meant to be. It is importantly not a journey of adding new, impressive traits to your social personality. Instead, it is a process of stripping away the false layers and gathering the lost pieces. You are walking through the incredibly thick fog of your own mind, trying to remember yourself. To individuate means you must intentionally stop looking outward for the crowd's validation and approval. You must turn your gaze purely inward, confronting both your brilliant light and your darkest shadows. This completely explains why the process feels so intensely, overwhelmingly isolating at the beginning. Like a caterpillar entering a chrysalis, you have to withdraw from the world to undergo transformation. Inside that dark, incredibly quiet space, the old social persona completely dissolves and fades. The deep alienation you feel is just the painful sensation of outgrowing your old container. But as you bravely continue to walk this solitary path, something miraculous begins to happen. The heavy, desperate loneliness slowly transforms into a peaceful, deeply empowering sense of solitude. You begin to realize that you are not actually lost wandering in the dark. You are simply walking toward a profound inner threshold, a door that only you can open. As you step across the threshold, the heavy, confusing fog completely dissipates. You find yourself in a breathtaking, quiet sanctuary, the core of your true self. When you finally open this door, you realize something incredibly profound. The destination you were desperately searching for was never a physical place. It was the terrifying, beautiful journey back to your own authentic soul. This is the very essence of what Carl Jung called individuation. It is the quiet, powerful realization that you were never actually broken. You did not fail at blending into the normal, everyday world. You simply outgrew it, because your deep mind required a much larger canvas. Here, in the absolute safety of your integrated self, the silence that once terrified you is no longer isolating or cold. The silence becomes a vast, rich, and deeply comforting sanctuary. The exhausting need to perform, to bend, to shrink yourself finally vanishes. You are no longer an alien stranded on a lonely foreign planet. You are the quiet explorer who has finally found their way home. But the journey of individuation does not end by hiding forever in your inner sanctuary. Eventually, you must return to the ordinary physical world. But this time, you return differently. You look at the heavy social mask you used to wear, and you consciously leave it behind. As you step back into the crowded streets, you notice a profound shift in your energy. When people approach you with their empty, rehearsed social scripts, the old pressure tries to return. But you no longer feel the desperate need to perform. You give yourself radical permission to simply be quiet, to respond authentically or not at all. Because you are no longer betraying your true self, your vital energy remains entirely intact. Your integrated authenticity acts as an invisible, protective shield against the chaotic noise of society. Those invisible sensory cables that used to drain you can no longer attach without your permission. You can now sit entirely alone in a busy, crowded cafe and feel perfectly whole. Instead of desperately trying to splash in their shallow puddles, you comfortably enjoy your depth. Yes, some people will undoubtedly misinterpret your profound silence. They might call you arrogant or strange, but their judgments simply bounce off you now, because you finally know exactly who you are. You have discovered the ultimate psychological superpower, being completely, unshakably comfortable in your own silence. However, this profound internal shift comes with a very harsh and often painful social reality. When you drop the mask, many of the people you thought were your friends will leave. It stings at first, until you realize a fundamental truth about human connection. They are not rejecting you. They are simply walking away from a mask that no longer exists. They never actually knew the complex, beautiful person hiding underneath it. This clearing out of superficial connections is not a tragedy. It is a vital necessity. You are finally creating the vast, empty space needed for something absolutely real. Because here is the most beautiful secret about radical authenticity. Your fully integrated, maskless self acts exactly like a powerful lighthouse in the dark. The shallow, passing crowd cannot even see this specific frequency of light. They ignore it. But somewhere out there in the vast, quiet night, there are other deep processors, other brave outsiders walking their own solitary paths. They are also tired of the shallow puddles and exhausted by the heavy fog. They are actively scanning the dark horizon, desperately looking for a genuine, authentic signal. And your unapologetic authenticity is the only magnet that can ever draw them to you. When you finally meet someone who processes the world with the exact same depth that you do, the profound relief is almost impossible to describe in words. For the first time in your life, you are looking at someone who truly understands. When you find your true tribe, the entire dynamic of human connection changes completely. There is absolutely no pressure to perform, to entertain, or to force a polite smile. You do not need to read from the dull, exhausting social script of the village. Instead, you can simply sit together in complete, absolute silence for hours at a time, and it will not feel awkward, tense, or heavy for a single passing second. Because you both understand that silence is not an empty void waiting to be filled. It is a rich, shared sanctuary where your exhausted minds can finally rest and recharge. And when you do finally decide to break the silence and speak to each other, you completely bypass the shallow puddles of everyday, meaningless small talk. You dive straight into the profound, glowing depths of the ocean together. You discuss your hidden fears, your complex theories, and your quietest, most vulnerable dreams. You realize that you were never broken. You just needed a different kind of connection. But the ultimate goal of individuation is not to hide in the deep woods forever. The goal is to take this profound, authentic fire you have finally cultivated and carry it safely within you, no matter where you go in the world. Armed with this unshakable inner sanctuary, you can finally face the ordinary world again. When you look at the superficial, masked crowd now, something fundamental has completely shifted. You no longer feel that intense, suffocating frustration or a desperate need to fit in. Instead, you view their shallow, rehearsed interactions with a profound, quiet sense of compassion. Because you finally understand that the heavy masks they wear are actually invisible, suffocating cages. You can now navigate their crowded spaces safely, fully accepting that you do not belong. Your inner peace remains completely untouched by their loud, chaotic, and demanding frequencies. Carl Jung referred to this transformed, elevated state as the archetype of the wounded healer. Only someone who has survived the intense, painful darkness of absolute alienation can ever hope to properly guide another lost soul out of that heavy fog. Your years of agonizing loneliness were simply the required, brutal training for this exact purpose, to become a safe, guiding harbor for those who are just beginning to wake up. When you finally embrace your profound, necessary role as the quiet outsider, you essentially become a powerful beacon of light for others who are still desperately lost. Slowly but surely, the right people will begin to find you in the dark. A tribe that does not demand a tiring performance, but simply asks you to exist. So the next time you find yourself standing in a crowded, noisy, superficial room, and you feel that familiar, quiet disconnect washing over your mind once again, do not panic, do not force a fake smile, and do not call yourself broken. Instead, take a deep breath. Let the meaningless noise simply wash right past you. Remember that your soul is currently protecting a very delicate, profound, and beautiful depth. You are walking the ancient, challenging, but incredibly rewarding psychological path of Carl Jung's individuation. You are not a broken alien. You are a deeply necessary pioneer of the human spirit. And somewhere out there in the dark, another brave outsider is desperately waiting for your light. So keep your lantern burning bright. Stay fiercely, unapologetically true to your own profound depth. Because the world desperately needs your sensitivity. You are exactly where you need to be. The content in this video is for reflection and reference only and does not replace professional psychological advice. If you are struggling, please reach out to someone you trust or a professional.